Of pages exploded within seconds across the city of Lebanon in a synchronized attack targeting Hezbollah. The explosions killed at least 12 and injured over 2,800 individuals in the country that has been caught up in the Israel-Palestine tensions in its backyard. Hezbollah, the political force running Lebanon, has blamed Israel for this attack. Throughout Gaza war, it supported Hamas and exchanged fire across its southern border with Israel in support for its Palestinian group. No country or group has claimed responsibility for the attack yet, but fingers pointing at Israel raise a big question over the capabilities of Mossad, the Israeli spy agency known for carrying out targeted attacks on foreign soils. Hezbollah uses pages to avoid location tracking by Israel. These pages bore the branding of Gold Apollo. Most were the company's AP924 model, the Taiwanese company. However, in a statement, said that another firm, BAC Consulting KFT, based in Hungary's capital, manufactured these devices. This attack hit them in the Achilles heel because they took out a central means of communication for them as well. What does this mean for the tensions that have already been steaming up in this part of the world? We'll discuss. Joining us on the show is Ambassador Bhaspati Mukherjee, former diplomat. Wing Commander S. Sudhakaran, former Indian Air Force officer, also joins us on the show. Pathikrit Pine, international affairs expert, also with us on the show. Professor Madhav Nalapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, joins us on the panel as well. Last but by no means the least, Mr. Jordan Cope, Middle East expert, with us on the program as well. Professor Nalapat, sir, I'll begin with you. Okay, Professor Nalapat will be joining us momentarily. Ambassador Mukherjee, your thoughts on what's happening here? This is obviously very worrying. How could something like this even be possible? What kind of a next level infiltration and attack are we seeing in this series of tensions which have catapulted in the last 1 year or so?
Vineet, we are so dependent on our mobile devices and on so many, for example, this kind of a handheld telephone, and we don't realize how vulnerable we are to external attack. In case a small chip is implanted there and if a small quantity of explosives are implanted there, it's very easy to basically generate an explosion. People have been talking about batteries. Batteries don't explode, they catch fire, but this is an explosion. So quite clearly, somewhere along the logistics chain, these pagers were intercepted and the necessary devices were loaded onto them. Once that gets done, it becomes a very simple operation to activate the pagers. So I would frankly go with the explanation that there's a very strong disinformation campaign launched simultaneously with this kind of an attack. And part of that campaign is probably to pin the blame on the Taiwanese group. I mean, I'm very clear from the very beginning that it need not be that, and the group itself has denied it, that it is responsible. The fact is that it could very well be an organized disinformation pointing the blame. We don't know exactly who made this. We don't, because the point is, whoever made it, the point has got responsibility for ensuring its safety across the logistics chain. And when you have a situation by which this happens, clearly that has not happened. So I would be very careful on that. Second point I want to say, Vinny, quite frankly, as far as this particular situation is concerned, it's very concerning for a simple reason that you remember back in 2011, I was very clear that neither Russia nor China will allow Bashar Assad, especially Russia, to lose the war. And Bashar Assad will stay. Unlike Gaddafi, unlike Saddam Hussein, the man will stay. Whereas that frankly was not taken seriously. And the belief was that Bashar would be turfed out. Well, he was kept in power. And the same situation now we are going to witness, because neither Russia nor China will basically permit a situation by which Hezbollah loses. They will not permit it. So this is an impossible situation that Israel is facing because of the hard fact that Russia and China are going to make sure that Hezbollah does not lose this particular contest. And this is the danger that we are facing. This escalatory cycle, where is it going to lead? We do not know. All we know is that it is a highly escalatory move. It is very likely to have consequences. Hopefully, Hezbollah and Iran will think twice or thrice before going in for a major attack. They have done so on 2 previous occasions when Netanyahu provoked them. And for Netanyahu, it's a question of jail or being prime minister. In other words, he's prime minister only so long as the war continues. So he has a vested interest in the war continuing, and now he's opening a second front when the first front is still active. I honestly can't understand why he's doing that, and I think he's putting the security of Israel, the region, and other parts of the world in danger as a consequence of this escalatory step. Thank you, Vineet.
Ambassador Mukherjee, where do you stand on this? And obviously, it's important to understand that the Hezbollah was using these pages because, they found them to be a more discreet mode of communication. But somehow, this explosion or the explosions have taken place across Lebanon. Blaming Israel for it.
Well, Vineet, it's not a question of blaming Israel. There is nobody else except Mossad that has the necessary technological skills to carry out this kind of an attack. But the issue is, as Professor Nalapat has said, that it's a major escalatory move, and can Netanyahu afford to really open a second front in this manner when he has not yet been able to either have a ceasefire or to have a return of hostages or to listen to public demands that he stop the war in Gaza is gone on long enough. In addition, what Professor Nalapat said about Syria is very correct. I'd like to add to that Bashar was one individual, whereas Hezbollah is a movement. If you exterminate, it's like a many-headed serpent. You cut off 7 heads, 14 will grow in its place. It's a movement ingrained in the minds of people. It cannot be exterminated in this manner. So, even the Israeli intelligence from time to time, and Israel's defense minister has pointed out to Netanyahu that this conflict, beyond a point, is counterproductive and is raising passions all over the Middle East. It is making the process of political reconciliation between Israel and major powers in the Middle East impossible from both sides. And it is creating a generation of people in the Gaza Strip and West Bank with implacable hatred towards Israel. It really is not worth it. So, just because of one man's desire to cling to his prime ministerial post, he is endangering, as Professor Nalapat said, the security of Israel. But more than that, he is risking a major escalation at a time when there are war clouds across Europe on the other side between Russia and Ukraine. All this so close to European skies on 2 sides of the continent does not bode well for international peace and security. And I really hope that once the US presidential election is behind us, regardless of who wins, the American president would be in a position to use his influence to put an end to this conflict.
All right. Pathikrit, do you think that Israel and Mr. Netanyahu are getting into a domain, are getting into a realm from where there could be further trouble ahead for them, and it is unwarranted at this point in time, considering what has happened in Gaza, and considering that most of the damage assessment which was initially done by Israel has been accounted for. Do you think that Israel needs to go this far, if at all they're into this?
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
See, Vinith, first of all, this is a war situation in Middle East. So what Israel does, I will not get into the morality of it. That's not my job to do. Hezbollah is a designated terror organization. Some of the other countries have designated at least the military wing of Hezbollah as a terror organization. So I am not getting into the morality of it. If had it been an attack on civilians, it would have been a different thing. But no civilian today, an ordinary civilian doesn't use a pager. So all those who were using the pager were part of Hezbollah. Okay, so that is Israel's concern to decide what happens to the war. I am more concerned about, if you have asked me, I'll talk about the new dimension of warfare that it is leading to. So the previous two dimensions on which many countries were, had to rethink about their trade, military preparedness. One is, the drone aspect of it, which we could see so much in Ukraine war. Before that, the issue of other kind of applications was an issue. This one brings a different dimension when it comes to convergence of asymmetric warfare and what we call, electronic warfare. So it opens up a new door, which is a cause of concern for many countries. And I find what is very interesting here, and I'm purely talking from technological part, I am not getting into the humanity part right now, is that it shows the industrial scale of capability application which must have happened here, because whoever replaced those something within that instrument may have got 1 day's time, may have got 2 days time, and to ensure that it is done and it looks absolutely same, and if they have actually done it, because it is a classic case of tradecraft by a state-sponsored actor. It cannot be done by a non-state actor, which means the circuit was changed. The battery may have got some kind of a PETN, or may have been activated in a manner that it gets overheated at a specific message, it will explode. It's very interesting from the technological point of view. Now the issue is this is an ingenious case which nobody thought about. Why the Hezbollah was using pager? Because it doesn't have a GPS, it doesn't have a camera, it doesn't have a microphone, it doesn't have apps. So they thought this low-tech option is probably the high-tech version in terms of ensuring that they cannot be tracked. But if this can be used and weaponized, then imagine what can be done with your cell phone or other devices. And I am more concerned as a country which is a $4 trillion economy today, but it has an overwhelming dependence on China when it comes to our components. So the cell phone that you use, Vinith, or I use, I don't know. It may have been programmed to get activated if, in case, hypothetically, tomorrow China gets into a conflict with India. So I think for every country, what happened yesterday is a wake-up call, is a red herring as to why it is important to have a tech sovereignty. So for India to become the second largest manufacturer of cell phones in the world is great. But at most, what we are doing is assembly. At most, 50% of the components are made in India. The rest is being sourced from somewhere else. And it puts a question mark on globalization, because it is a classic case of supply chain interference, supply chain vulnerability. Someone, somewhere, I don't know who, but we all know who has the potential to do it. Someone interfered with that vulnerability. Now, it cannot be a one-off case. It tomorrow can be done on a country like India. It cannot be that, oh, Israel did it, it's a Middle Eastern thing, let's forget it, let's pray for peace. It's not going to happen, okay? Even if Israel stops everything today, and I'm not taking any side, it doesn't mean that Hezbollah will seek peace. It doesn't mean that Houthi will seek peace. And whatever Houthis are doing, it has an impact on our country as well, in terms of the supply chain disruptions it creates the entire region. Okay, so purely from perspective of what happened yesterday, please do not think that it is a cause of concern for Hezbollah or Iran. I'm sure by today, Hezbollah has stopped using its communication infrastructure, and every man concerned with the Iranian government will be scared to use their cell phone. But tomorrow, it can happen to us as well. Okay, so that is a very, very big issue. We have seen what narrative war can do with social media in terms of control of algorithms or AI. Now, this is a completely new dimension. So the Internet of Things we are talking about can weaponize anything. Your cell phone battery, your refrigerator, your television. And the bigger concern is, even if you are not integrated into the internet, or even if you're not integrated through GPS, you are still vulnerable. Okay, so I see it's not my concern about Apollo Gold or what happened. You know, there would be collateral damage. But if you purely look at it from the perspective of tradecraft and analysis, probably this was one of the biggest case of casualties done on an alleged terror organization without any collateral damage. No civilian who was associated, who is not associated. Yeah, there has been 2 children who died, which is extremely sad, tragic, and I have absolute sympathy for that. But if you look at it purely from the perspective of war, and let's accept it, Vinit, war has been normalized in today's era. We are living in an environment in Indian subcontinent where we are 2 seconds away from a war at any point of time. So from that perspective, what terrorism can do and what counter-terrorism can do has opened a new dimension yesterday. Question is, how prepared are we as a country to face?
All right, good points. Let me also rope in Mr. Jordan Cope. Mr. Cope, I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you. Thank you.
All right. Well, you know, what's also concerning, Mr. Cope, is the fact that, all right, we don't know who did it, whether it's Israel or not, but the fact of the matter is whoever did this, whoever in fact came up with this kind of a way to target people or terrorists or Hezbollah or what have you, did it without any regard for the fact that when this goes down, it could also impact and kill innocent people there as well. So this is perhaps, this conflict getting into an entirely different and perhaps even a more dangerous zone now.
I would argue that the technique which was employed was one of the most precise that could possibly be used. It was a strategy designed to intentionally target those with the pagers in their pockets or even in their hands. And I've seen the videos of some of these explosions, and they were very precise in their nature. I can't understand why anybody would consider this a disproportionate response. Having heard some of the panelists' responses, I'd like to clarify why this initiative was probably justified if it was conducted by Israel or the Shin Bet. Again, a lot of speculation in terms of how the attack was executed, whether it was by means of interfering with through means of malware or through means of actually installing explosives in the phones themselves. A lot to be discovered in weeks to come. But since October 7th, 2023, Hezbollah was actually supposed to help Hamas with its invasion. Hamas actually launched its invasion beforehand, killed 1,200 innocent people, kidnapped 250 others. And many on this panel seem to suggest that Netanyahu is spearheading this war. Israel did not want this war. This war was unilaterally initiated by Hamas when it invaded. Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis are all part of this greater Iranian proxy axis which wanted this war. And whatever Israel does, unfortunately, Israel will always be held to a different standard than other countries in terms of how it conducts its self-defense. Israel was not in control of Gaza or the West Bank up until 1967, and yet beforehand there were multiple wars launched, at least one war launched to try to destroy Israel and its existence, and there were other efforts along the way to advance that ultimately perverse initiative. Israel, once again, hasn't controlled Gaza since about 2005, 2006. Hamas unilaterally invaded. So it's not really what Israel does. Israel, there are many actors in the region who want to destroy Israel, such as Hezbollah, one of whose foremost goals is the destruction of Israel as a Jewish state and to accompany and incorporate it into part of its Shiite Islamist axis. And so the big takeaways I would say from this attack is that Hezbollah once thought it was safe using these pagers, which they've kind of turned to since February of 2024. And if Israel or the Shin Bet conducted this operation, it will instill the fear in much of Hezbollah and make them realize that their capabilities are not as protected as they would have previously thought. But Israel must act right now. Hezbollah, aspiring to destroy Israel over the last decade and some, has amassed a rocket stockpile of over 150,000 rockets. Many of these are precise and can target very densely civilian populated areas in Israel. Hezbollah recently conducted a terrorist attack in Majd al-Shams, which killed 12 innocent children on a soccer pitch. Hezbollah has no regard for civilians. This pager operation was targeted, precise, and a necessary response when 60,000 civilians in Israel have been displaced from the north due to ongoing rocket fire, which began on October 7th by Hezbollah. 7,500 rockets have been sent by Hezbollah into Israel during this war alone. And it's important to understand that many seem to suggest that Israel is escalating war. The reality is that Hezbollah initiated war when it joined forces with Hamas on October 7th, when it showed its true colors as a proxy of the greater Iranian axis, which seeks to destroy Israel. And though while some of these movements might differ in terms of their ideology, whether it's Shia Islamism like the Houthis and Hezbollah, or Sunni Islamism such as Hamas, many of them receive hundreds of millions of dollars from the Iranian government to conduct their operations, Hezbollah receiving the most of that money.
Okay, all right, good points there. Wing Commander Sudhakaran, how do you see this? Obviously, there is a lot of ganging up also happening at, currently as well against Israel now.
See, there is nothing new in it. The entire world, apart from India, the Hindus in India, I would say, have ganged up against Jews traditionally. The only place that Jews found reconciliation and some level of rehabilitation, and they have lived in peace, is in India. And that's why India finds mention in their constitution. So today, when we are talking about this pager attack, I'm not going to sit on the fence. I will tell you with a 100% assurance that this is indeed a job probably carried out by Mossad. Maybe I don't know if there is any other intelligence agency within the Israeli framework, but then it looks certainly like the job of Mossad, and they're well within the rights to do it. Because you can't call an organization a terrorist organization and then say that they have human rights to do what they want. That's kind of an hypocritic world that we are living in. Please understand, Israel didn't go into Gaza and attack it. There were a lot of people who were probably celebrating, who were attacked mercilessly, taken hostage, and probably the militant, the jihadists like the IC-814 hijack, they thought they can hold the world to ransom. Israel probably knows very well that it cannot give in because then it will have to give the entire land. The entire Islamic fraternity have vowed to demolish Israel from the face of earth. That kind of a vow is not acceptable in modern times. We need to give everybody a space. There are more than 50 odd Muslim countries. It's not that the earth has got devoid of space. Israel has got a very, very small territory, which it wants to, give to its natives. So, while I will call for this two-nation theory, yes, Gaza needs to have its space, but Gaza can't, engage in violence and then say that we want peace. You decide for yourself what you want. You educate your people. You can't, breed terrorism. You can't have terrorists ruling the roost and then, coming and complaining that we are being attacked. They cannot invent. They cannot innovate. What they can do is engage in destructive activity. If the UN and the world fraternity have designated some people as terrorists, why can't we be unified against our act? The same thing is what Pakistan is doing to India. India knows more about terrorism than even Israel, I would say. Because the kind of bleeding that India has had in the last 30, 40 years, it's unprecedented. But still shamelessly we have parliamentarians, our own parliamentarians, sitting inside the parliament and calling for talks with those terrorists and non-state actors, and with a state which has got terrorism as its primary policy. So therefore, coming to talk about it, what I have been given to understand is Israel had this intelligence that Hezbollah was operating with prey pagers. They probably intercepted a consignment wherein, I'm also even given to understand that the pagers are AR-924 IP67 class, which is being embedded with Kiska 3, which is an unheard kind of explosive, probably an improvised explosive, which has been, planted in very small quantities. What we need to understand is there is no civilian target here. All those who were carrying the pagers were terrorists or were part of Hezbollah. If you are part of a terrorist organization.
For more such videos, Subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.